Oh, surprise, surprise. How you guys doing? I'm getting feedback already, so hopefully it's not doing that on the show. Doesn't look like it's going to. You guys getting feedback and all? Tell me now. It's an early show because I'm off today. Brandon's off today. We're gonna do a show tomorrow. But this is one of the solo ones I was telling you about. Jacked Ramsays special edition solo one, and I've had a million questions about who I like, and this is the my guys, which apparently is a thing that everybody's doing now. I think Sam Vecini just put one out. I think Kevin O'Connor just put one out. I think Richmond did one too. But no, this is a my guys podcast version for me. And I'm just going to kind of go through, I probably got about a half hour, and I'm just going to go through, not necessarily my mock, but the guys that I like. If you follow me for any period of time, I always have guys that I like, regardless of kind of where they are in the draft. 2017 is the one that stands out. Donovan Mitchell, OG Anunoby, those were guys that I liked. I also like Justin Patton, whose foot basically exploded and he couldn't play basketball anymore. So it's kind of, it's not necessarily hit or miss. I always have guys that I like in a draft that, not necessarily in order of how good I think they're going to be, but like just players that I generally like. Jonathan Isaac is another player that I really liked coming out. Mo Bamba is obviously a guy that I really liked when I came out. Yes, it's my day off and I decided to do more work, but I love this stuff. So I just kind of want to go through that. And I'll kind of work my way through the draft as far as like some mocks are concerned. But that's kind of the general stuff. I'll try to maybe answer a couple of questions here. I'm going to have a mock that comes out probably this weekend, my final one. And then kind of go from there. I'm not going to talk too much about the mock drafts or the intel stuff right now, just because so much is just kind of up in the air. I'll probably solidify this probably Sunday, Monday, and then go from there. But without further ado, let's kind of jump into it. So top of the draft has been, I think he's been number one for me the entire draft, has been Alex Sarr. I've talked about him a bunch. Up, down, left, right, center. I know Risacher is a guy that I like, but Sarr is a guy who the first time I really started diving into the film, October, November, his OTE stuff, and kind of getting ready for this cycle, knowing what the Blazers were going to be doing, and understanding just how things were going to go this last year, I started prepping really early. And the more I watched Sarr, even with questions, I looked at him and I went, this is the profile. This is the toolsy guy that I like, right? This is, again, Jonathan Isaac, Mo Bamba, OG Anunoby. Like, those are guys that I like. That's stylistically, that's Jabari Smith Jr. was a guy that I really liked. Those are, like, if you're looking for an archetype, like if I could build a team, like that's the way I would build it. I like it bigger, stronger, longer, more athletic. I mean, look at, as much as I hate to admit it, the Boston Celtics. That's kind of that group of guys. I've never seen somebody move the way Alex Sarr does at his size. And I think I've said this before, and I know I've said it on the radio, but Sarr to me is the guy that if I had the number one pick, I would take unabashedly. I don't care. Oh, he doesn't have great rebounding numbers. Awesome. He was asked to do a million different things for Perth. And I think the context with him matters. But he's the guy that I really, 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 really like in this draft, comparatively. Risacher is a guy who I like, and I have liked throughout this entire process. I've had him top 5 pretty much throughout the entire process. Talking back and forth, Heiken and I, we talked about rookies a lot during the season, before and after games, just because of where things were. I spent a lot of time. I would get to Moda about 3:05, 3:10 before games, and more often than not, I would fire Synergy up and watch a game back, or I'd watch clips back on guys that I was trying to prep for. And Risacher was a guy that I started watching a ton of early. He just got dumb hot. 6'10" guys that can shoot the ball. Again, like, I don't know if he's necessarily one of my guys, though, because that athletic profile is a little bit limited. And the thing that I noticed that stood out about Risacher is that, unfortunately, I'm painting him in a terrible light. He's a stretched out version of me in that he's very, very, very long in the torso, and he appears to have short legs. And if you watch him beyond like, oh, he needs to tighten his handle and he needs to do this, biomechanically, he doesn't eat up space when he drives. It's like Fred Flintstone, chop, 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 chop. Short. He did like, watch Giannis. Again, Giannis is like the, otherworldly guy, but it's 2.5 steps from outside the 3-point line. He just gobbles up space with this disgustingly long stride. And I think that's the thing that you notice about guys with that size profile that I go, yeah, I like that more. So I like Risacher, but he's probably the lowest on like the my guys index. Again, I'm just doing this kind of like in draft pecking order. I did want to kind of devil's advocate here for some guys too. I am not a huge Donovan Clingan guy. The traditional, like, drop big has become kind of like a dirty word, and I don't necessarily think it's that, because if you can play a little bit higher and still be, like, viable, like you can contest and cover some ground, then I think you can do the drop big thing. Everybody's like, well, the Timberwolves do it. It's like, well, yeah, they have Mike Conley, and they have Jade McDaniels, and they have Anthony Edwards, and they have, look, say what you want about Karl Anthony Towns, he's still 7 foot, like 275. Like, there's a lot of size and length and defensive utility around Gobert that makes that viable. What's interesting about Clingan is he is huge. He's a massive, massive, massive human. I mean, he's 7'2", basically barefoot. Was he 7'1"3/4"? So it's like he's 7'3" in shoes. He's just huge. That matters. And he's got good defensive instincts. He's a smart player. Like, at UConn, they ask you to do a lot of things offensively and defensively. I think he's a safe player. The Portland Trailblazers were probably the worst screening team in the NBA last year. And I get this, like, desire, if you're the Trailblazers, to go after Donovan Clingan because you want better screening. And the thing about that is, if you're like, oh, we need to make this easier for Scoot, we need to make this easier for Shaden, need to make this easier for Ant and get better screens. Like, does it really matter that much if, number one, Scoot doesn't improve as a shooter? Number two, you don't get like the vertical lob presence, or you don't get the roll presence. Like, Clingan's an okay mover. That's not true. He's a very good mover for his size. But in general, he's a 7'3", 280-pound dude. He moves more like Jusuf Nurkic does, which is not fast. I think he might actually be able to do some stuff in the short roll. I think there's some playmaking juice there. Like, if that's what you're talking yourself into, I get that. But I don't see him as a guy who's a lob threat. I don't see him as a pick and roll guy who's going to catch on the run and like finish at the rim consistently. It's just I have trouble seeing that. It gives me pause. We'll go that way. I also don't believe like in a couple years he's going to be like all of a sudden be shooting the three. Like, if that's what you believe and that's your projection and like that's the Blazers, go with God, I guess. I'm just an idiot, so I've gotten plenty of these wrong. I'm not sure I see it. The Dalton Connect one, Brandon and I have argued this one back and forth 1,000 times, so I'm not going to really dive into it. He's not one of my guys. I think he's a good player. I think he's a really good player. I think he's probably one of the safest players in this draft. I think he's a bit of an asshole in the right way. Like, I think the Blazers could use a little bit of that, but I don't necessarily think he's the guy that should be bringing it. On to one of my favorite prospects in the draft, and I've been banging this drum for a long time, Tidjane Salaun. 6'10", 220 pounds, one of the youngest guys in the draft. Motor. Just goes and goes and goes. I think every team needs a guy like this if he hits. I've heard Michael Porter Jr. light. I've heard Aaron Gordon light. I've gone with the more advanced version of Mo Wagner. Mo, not Franz. I think he's going to be a very good role player, but he presents problems for teams because he's 6'10", and he's 220, and he's probably, when it's all said and done, going to be 240, 245. He's got a massive frame that you can pack a ton of weight onto. And I think he's a guy that can get incredibly strong and still be a fluid mover. I believe that he'll be probably a 36-ish, 37%-ish three-point shooter. I do believe in the shot. Volume is a better indicator than percentage, particularly at that age. There's very few under 20-year-olds that shoot the ball well, particularly with size. Reed Shepherd and who's the other guy I was thinking of earlier? There's Jared McCain, Duke. Those are rare, but they're also smaller, shorter-armed guards. Those are the guys who typically profile as better shooters early on. But most guys like 19 and a half and under, you don't find freshmen or first-year kind of international pro-level players shooting the ball well. The one that everybody wants to go to is Luka shot 31% from three. He can't shoot. Ah! It's he's fine. He's fine. I think Salaun will be able to shoot it. I genuinely do. I have to kind of taper expectation versus my adult son vibe with him. There's just something about him from the first time I watched him that I was just drawn to. I had a friend who kind of introduced me to him October. By the end of November, I was I'm sold. I get it. I'm in. I just watched film like a bat out of hell on him. And I was okay, I get it. Even with the limited stuff that was out there, I was just it calls to me, as it were. It's very much, size profile, motor, upside, wingspan, standing reach, the feel stuff. I get it. If you push back on that, it's very different in that sense. What does Salaun bring that we don't get from 2? Well, he's 6'10" already at 18 years old. His ability to be a high if it were possible to have 2 and Salaun, and let's say 2 plateaus as a 35-36% three-point shooter, and Salaun turns into a 36-37% three-point shooter, you have better versions of Mo and Aminu. For a comparison, I think you'd be significantly better, bigger, stronger, longer, with dudes with higher engines who give a shit more. Just full stop. I think those are good, solid places to start with going forward. And as much as I love Salaun, I don't think he's this guy who's gonna shatter. Everybody's he's the biggest swing in the draft. That was the title for my write-up on Jacked Ramsays on the Patreon. Is he the biggest swing in the draft? I don't know. I think that he probably has one of the lower floors. But if you think he projects beyond even what we're seeing because he's so young, because he's a late bloomer, because of that size profile, and I don't think he ever is a guy who puts the ball down on the floor. But if he turns into Denver Nuggets Aaron Gordon, that's a great player. Let's say it's a little bit, you drop the slider on the playmaking, but you raise the slider a little bit on shooting. Obviously, you aren't going to have the high level, crazy above the rim athleticism. But runs the baseline, dunker spot monster, knocks down corner threes, junkyard, do whatever you need to do every night, guy. Mwah! Sign me up. Sign me up. I'm 100% in on that. My guy in this group is Cody Williams. Cody Williams has... I had Jonathan Washman of Bleacher Report on the radio yesterday. If you go to my Twitter profile, I retweeted the show. The 1080 show profile has it. Danny and Dusty has it. I've been a Cody guy for a while throughout this season. I I don't really care what he did after the injury, to be honest. I don't really care what he did after the injury. The stuff that I saw from him, did I want more? Yes. I talked to a couple head coaches throughout the year about Cody, and there was always some like, how can you be 6'7" and only have this many rebounds? Or you don't get this many shots. And I think there was more a willingness to fit in and less of a I need to force the action because of Eddie Lampkin, because of KJ Simpson, because of Tristan Da Silva, and because Cody's still young. And maybe that's me being naive. Maybe that's me imparting my bias on it because I want him to be good. Like that's the thing, is like I always have to be aware of that bias. Like I like this guy because he's a profile of player that I like. Okay, but what specifically do you like about them that stands out? My draft rules has always been, what is the thing that gets you on the floor? And Salaun kind of pushes against that because he doesn't do anything really great other than be like a crazed attack dog with a crazy energy and a wild, insanely, built body at 18 years old. Cody Williams, like, yeah, he didn't take that many threes, but you know what he did do? He took a lot of shots at the rim and he finished damn near all of them. Like the only other guys that took like that kind of volume as a wing at that age, oh God, what was the list? It was like Zion and somebody else, another high level finisher at the rim. He finished basically 75% of his shots at the rim. And for a guy who's underweight or lacking strength, there was something about his innate ability to, number one, get to the rim, but number two, like avoid contact and not to like avoid contact and like not get hit. He just has an unbelievably natural ability to be slithery. He's gold slithery as a 19-year-old. It's like, ooh, that's nice. And then when he gets there, right hand, left hand, dunk over the top, touch, shots that he throws at the rim that you're just going, that has no chance of going in. And it goes in because he's got otherworldly touch as an interior finisher. I really like that, and that's the kind of thing I think projects further along. I also like that he doesn't have to rely on insane athleticism. I don't want this to sound negative towards Scoot, but I think Scoot played his whole life being the most athletic and explosive guy he'd ever been around. I think that was a detriment to him when he got in the NBA because it was all of a sudden, oh, I need to learn how to play without that. And I don't think Cody's ever been that. I think he's been better, certainly, but I think he has this natural feel for how to get to his spots, even if he gets bumped off them. And I think that's the thing, he needs to get stronger. Both on the physically, but also like in his lower half to be able to like to take that and not get knocked off his path. But I really like his profile, and he took 6 transition threes this year. That's it, 6, and he hit 5 of them. The one he missed, he airballed. The other 5, they didn't touch anything but the net, and it was one of those things where it's like, why aren't you doing this more? Because when he just stops and pulls into it, like this just confidence, you're like, oh, if you don't think about this at all, like it's this simple little 2-part bloop, bloop, and it's kind of almost a highlight finish, and it's a little, I want to say weird, it's just a slightly different shot, but there's something about it that I like. I don't know. I'll if the Blazers draft him, I'll probably do like a deep dive on him on his jumper, because I think there's some interesting stuff in there that kind of goes counter to what we typically think about jump shooters. But there's something about his jumper that I really like. Overall, he's a guy who's comped himself to Jaden McDaniels. I don't know if he's going to be that kind of impactful defender, but he's also, like Jaden, not incredibly disruptive despite having the wingspan. So it's kind of okay. I want to change course and kind of go back to guys that to play devil's advocate on, and that's the G League Ignite guys, Modest Buzelis and Ron Holland. I've heard Ron continues to fall. He had a very rough pro day. The pro day is supposed to be a thing that you just go, oh, okay, mark the box, and Ron didn't. And then I've heard that he's had some workouts that didn't go well. Interviews haven't been necessarily great, or the intel hasn't been like, yeah, like there's just stuff. I like Ron because he's a lunatic and plays with passion and energy and fire and all those things. The jumper's not it. It's just not. And I keep hearing, and I replied to somebody on Twitter about this earlier, I keep hearing about Ron Holland being this elite level athlete. He's a good athlete. He's not like an elite NBA athlete. Like, let me pull it back up. Ron Holland and Ryan Dunn of Virginia have basically the same exact athletic score. But Ryan Dunn's like, what, almost 20 pounds heavier? But with a longer standing reach. And like, it's just, I don't look at Ron and go, oh my God, that dude is a monster. Like, I think highlight culture has probably done Ron in a pretty serious disservice because, like, to me, insane level athlete at the wing spot is Andre Iguodala. That is an elite level athlete at the wing spot. That's like, holy shit. And it didn't matter. I can't shoot, can't do this, blah, blah, blah. You get that kind of athlete with like good playmaking feel and IQ, and you're like, I can make that work. I can make that work. Like that's the kind of thing where you're just like, jumper's not great, but this man is an absolute terrorist in transition. His ability to create off the bounce and get downhill and offer like real rim pressure while being able to run an offense effectively and being like a high-level wing playmaker, that is like an elite level athlete. And I've seen some people talk about, well, he's an elite level defensive prospect. And it's like, is he? Like, he's a good defensive prospect, and the effort will go a long way in helping him out. But I don't know. I don't necessarily see that. I see him as being disruptive, certainly. But like OG Anunoby, when he came out, that was a guy I pointed to and be like, that you can go back and read the tweet. That was a week before the draft. OG Anunoby is a wrecking ball. He is the kind of guy that will blow up opposing NBA offenses. I think that's word for word, bar for bar, what I said going into that draft. You knew right away, OG Anunoby, that dude is going to ruin NBA offenses on a regular night. I don't know if I can say that about Ron. I think he'd be a good defender. I don't think there's any doubt about that. As long as the give a damn is high and he just kind of brings the mental stuff up with it, great. And I've seen some people, he's a good playmaker. I was like, what are we defining as playmaking? It's like straight line drive and like maybe a pass here or there. I don't know. He had an assist to turnover rate that was upside down. Again, like it's the G League night. It was a complete shit show, but I didn't see anything from the tape, either the tape or in person. In person, I walked away and went, that's tough for both him and Modest. But after crapping on him for 5 minutes, let me do this. If you believe that the jumper is fixable, if you believe the flashes of creation are like an indicator of like he could do more, then you could talk me into him probably if you guarantee me that he was a guy that was willing to take a step back within the offense. Like, I just don't see him being a high usage guy. Like, I don't even see him being like Andre Iguodala, second side mover kind of guy. So, but, that's just, again, he's not one of my guys. And I think a lot of the same is true for Modest Buzelis. Although, with Modest, because of the size, because he's 6'10", and he's, positionally, he can do some things that other guys can't do at that spot, theoretically. Again, if you believe in the shot, then sure, I can at least, even if Modest isn't one of my guys, I can at least get what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're putting down, so to speak. But I don't know if those are necessarily guys that I would dive headfirst in for. Let's see. Who else do we have in that group? Despite Isaiah Collier going to USC, he is not one of my guys. I really like Tristan da Silva. I don't know if he's one of my guys. If the Blazers took him at 14, totally fine, good, solid pick. I just, higher floor, lower ceiling, so to speak. It feels like a backhanded compliment. I just think he's just a good player. I want to talk about Zach Edey because I've heard Zach Edey's name come up with the Trailblazers recently alongside Clingan, and it kind of matches the same stuff with that Clingan does. Massive human, good screener, not sure about like what his offensive role really is. You kind of have to design some stuff for him. I don't know if the Blazers are really in a position to be like, yeah, let's make sure we design our second unit for this guy. I don't know if like they're there. I don't know if that makes sense. The counter to that is you believe Zach Edey's interior dominance was so great that he'll continue to do it in the NBA. I don't. But if you believe that, that's your pitch. That's your sell, right? He's so good. Like, it doesn't matter. He doesn't have a post bag. He's not working with Hakeem. Well, if they can't stop you from turning over your left shoulder and going to a right hook, or occasionally doing a drop step to the middle of the floor and just kind of like dropping the ball in the rim because you're a massive human being, then who cares? But I just think NBA players and their size, even if they're smaller than him, are going to take a lot of that stuff away. And again, I don't necessarily believe in the shooting per se. His entire shot chart at college, which if you go to the Jacked Ramsays Patreon, all of the breakdowns all have synergy shot tracking charts from their last year here, whether it was in the G League or college or overseas, to kind of give you an idea of like where they shoot. Zach Edey basically shoots exclusively at the rim, which I guess that's a form of rim pressure. But I don't know if Zach Edey post-ups are the thing that I want to be like, yeah, that's a thing that you wrap into the Blazers. Just not really for me. Speaking of my guys, I'm going to tap a Dayton Flyer here in Deron Holmes. The word is he has a first round, or he has a promise from a team, not necessarily a first round, Denver, and that they might look to trade back so they can save some money. But Deron Holmes is a guy that I just really like. He came in last year, and I kind of got to see, or hear, I should say, about him and his workouts, what he needed to work on, things to kind of keep an eye on. And then, after seeing Tumani and talking to people around about Deron, he's just a guy that I really like, just a smart player that just kind of fits in. I really like his fit with the Bucks. I think they could do a ton with him, kind of going forward. But that's a guy that I could really, really, really see making sense for a lot of teams. I just like, even if he's an undersized center, but the ability, can he step out and knock down some shots? Can he play make a little bit? Can he rebound a little bit? He's just a basketball player. And I think it's the same thing with another guy on my list, and that's Kevin McCullough from Kansas. The rumors are that he has some red flags medically with his hip. I'm aware of those. And that does scare me a little bit, particularly with this team. But in the second round, you could talk me into that. I'm picking up what you're putting down as far as like, okay, we can go down that path. But he's a guy who I think I've seen mocked to Portland a million times. But I think that's a guy that makes a lot of sense for this team. Another guy that I really like that came in and has worked out already for the Trailblazers, Jalen Tyson from Cal, basketball player. Like, well, he didn't really look great defensively and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it was Cal. Without him, they were struggling. Knocks down shots, can create a little bit, can rebound a little bit. Just, I don't care that he's almost 22 or whatever. It's just, if you're picking in the second round, I like guys like that. Give me some skill sets that get on the floor. Those are the kind of guys that I can really get into. Those are the kind of guys that I can really get into. I'm not necessarily as high on, unless you want to take a flyer. Unless you want to kind of call this, like, I'm calling Roops a flyer. I think it's a flyer on a high level development. But AJ Johnson from Illawarra, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. But I see more RJ Hampton than anything else. Adem Bona, who the Blazers brought in for one of their early workouts from UCLA. If he's there at 40 and the Blazers are looking, I would be shocked if they didn't grab him. That's a guy who Great athleticism, knows what he's supposed to do, knows his role. I could see being a backup big in this league for 10 years. Legitimately. I could just, okay, cool. I could see you doing that. More athletic Jabari Walker. He's just talking to him in his interview, smart guy. I've talked to a lot of folks just like have worked with or worked around him and scouted him, and they all just like him. And I think there's something to that, and that's kind of where I want to wrap this one up with, is my last guy here as far as being liked. Shout out Mike Richmond's UNC Tar Heels here, and he's talked about his guy Harrison Ingram. Harrison Ingram, his interview was electric. He's a guy that brings a locker room together. If the Blazers, for whatever reason, are just like, oh, we need one more guy, a toolsy guy, but a good locker room guy that could end up being a two-way, just being around the guys and just like a connector on and off the floor. Harrison Ingram is that guy. Harrison Ingram is that guy. I love him. Love him. Just an absolutely awesome, wonderful dude. What's going to be interesting to see is kind of what guys go where, who ends up, falling, who ends up jumping up. Do the Spurs trade up? Do the Hawks trade back? There's just a lot here. I mean, there's a reality where Portland doesn't get any of the wings, whether it's Salaun, whether it's Cody Williams. If you like the G League guys, either of those guys, and it goes somewhere different. I'll be scratching my head a little bit, certainly. But I think that's something that has to be worth considering, kind of going forward. But the NBA draft is a week away. Dusty here and myself, Isaac and Suk from 1080, we will be on site on location at 10 Barrel Brewing in the Pearl. I will do my show with Dusty, and then because the Blazers are going to have media availability that night, I don't want to have to drive all the way back. I'm going to drive as soon as I get off air before the draft. I should say I get off air before the draft. I'm going to drive home here to Newburgh, so it's a shorter drive for me to the practice facility once the draft ends, because I imagine we're going to get going pretty quick for media availability. We will have Joe Cronin available to the media the first night of the draft, not the second night. We're just going to, I believe that's the way we're doing it. Don't count me on that 100%, but I think that's where we're sitting right now. So if you want to come down pre-draft festivities, come say what's up. Come down to 10 Barrel Brewing. We're down there. Dusty and I, Isaac and Suk, Brandon and Sprague, Dirt and Sprague will all be back on air tomorrow on 1080. I'm going to wrap this one up now because I got to go record with Sam Vecini of The Athletic, which you will be able to hear tomorrow on the radio. So thank you guys so much. As I said, I just wanted to get this one out here, do the My Guys draft, kind of put that out into the atmosphere, as it were. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. Go outside, touch grass. It's beautiful outside. It's like 85 degrees. And then Brandon and I think we'll be back tomorrow is the plan, if not Friday. So other than that, at Danny Marang, at Brandon Sprague, at Jacked Ramsays, email the show. Jacked Ramsays is jackedramsays@gmail.com. There we go. Totally forgot my tag out there. But beyond that, take care, everybody. Talk soon, and catch you later. Bye.